Hello and welcome for this new release of Xen Orchestra, the 5.94, the April release. And this month we've made many exciting improvements. Obviously, the major highlight is XOSTOR. I will talk about it just after this intro. But that's not it. We also made many improvements regarding the VMware V2V conversion tool and so on. So let's start with what we start with now since the last probably 6 to 7 months. Some news regarding project and community, which is a kind of a broad intro on what's going on in our ecosystem. So, as I said just previously, indeed, we are still improving our VMware conversion tool, which is now like almost 2 years old. And we continue to make many improvements into it because that's really a shortcut for people that are, running VMware and migrating to our solution. And we encountered many different use cases. But what I can tell you already right now is that this VMware Exodus isn't slowing down at all. We still have a huge number of people coming to see us for assistance during the migration. So that's part of what we do, and we are really happy to do it. And so this influx isn't slowing down at all. So that's an interesting thing. And in fact, we are seeing bigger and bigger, let's say, companies and IT infrastructure starting the migration as we speak. So that's really interesting. I also updated personally the documentation on how to make that migration to be fully up to date regarding to what we improved and different ways to do that migration. So feel free to take a look. We'll be happy to add anything if you can spot any missing pieces. But anyway, now the documentation is fully up to date. Let's switch to the research and development part of XCP-ng to also give you some, news about what's going on there. There's two technical articles that you might find interesting. The one is talking about getting the hypervisor Xen running on an Ampere platform. So as you might remember, we had a technical collaboration started last month with them. So we had access to some machines, really exciting machines, and we could install, Xen on it. So not the entire XCP-ng, but Xen, and it worked. So there's some quirks and things like this, but that's truly showing the right direction to move forward. And obviously, at some point, we'd love to get XCP-ng running in a, I would say, as turnkey as you can find on x86. So that's one of our goals, and it's moving forward. The other technical article is regarding IOMMU and in fact, parameterized IOMMU for Xen. So feel free to take a look into it on why it's a promising thing for the Xen project and us, and also understand the challenge to do it for the project. That's to give you an idea, one of the, let's say, project we are leading inside the Xen project among RISC-V ports, SEV enablement for VM memory encryption by the CPU and so on. So that's another demonstration that we are really committed inside the Xen project, and not just using open source and selling it with the support. What we do is really to be the master of our own destiny by shaping the future of the software we are using. So I would say it's not the easy path. It costs a lot of money because you have to invest a lot with the research and development. But in the end, you truly have control on what's going on the product you are using for your own, technological stack. Another topic, which is also very exciting for many people, is our progress regarding our future storage stack, so which is called the SMAP EV3. So the SMAP EV3 is kind of removing all the previous, I would say, limitation of the SMAP EV1, which is the current storage stack we have. And we made the first, let's say, preview driver for local storage using ZFS, getting rid of the 2 terabyte limits and providing a really decent level of performances and so on. And we need your feedback on this. So if you want to, explore, test it as a community member, your feedback is really welcome. So feel free to take a look at the article. We put all the details inside it. And to finish with the, let's say, outside news, outside Xen Orchestra news, we got also the XCP-ng security updates. It's almost monthly. Then we're distributing, updates regarding potential security vulnerabilities and so on. So there's one for April. So it's like the tradition is preserved. And feel free to take a look and stay up to date, because more than ever, having your software fully up to date is truly capital to be secure. So have a good read, and we give all the explanation about the vulnerabilities and so on inside that blog post. Let's switch to the announcement regarding Xen Orchestra. So it's a kind of, not only Xen Orchestra, but basically XOSTOR is now fully available. And as you know, this is a project we started to work now almost 5 years ago, with a very long time in beta to be sure everything is working. It's not finished yet, I would say, in a way that there's many improvements that are already in the pipes, but it's stable and it works for now between 3 to 7 hosts inside the same pool. So take a look at the article to understand, more details and how to install it and so on. There is a complete guide inside that article. But anyway, we also improved the UI inside Xen Orchestra with 2 new features, I would say. So, for example, you can now select the network interfaces used for the replication system, the DRBD replication stuff. So directly from the UI, it's pretty easy to, do that operation. And also, if you go to the storage repository view of an XOSTOR SR, you will have a dedicated tab returning all the status of all the volumes and so on. So it's truly helpful to see very quickly if there is a problem or whatnot or something like this. So very, very convenient, and we'll continue to add more and more stuff into the UI. So it will be really, plug and play and easy to install. And as usual, we need your feedback. If there's any problem or things you'd like to report, even if it's, working pretty well, always happy to get, your setup and your feedback on it. So there's a dedicated section on the forum called, simply XOSTOR. So feel free to go there, test and report. We'll be happy to get your feedback. Let's switch to the backup thing for this month. So it was mostly minor improvements, a lot of small bug fixes, but also we improved the health check timeout configuration. So, if you use the automated backup health check, which is automatically re-importing your VM on the destination of your choice, there is a timeout to be sure the VM is booting and maybe even checking the application you wanted to check. By default, it was set to 10 minutes, but some people are using the advanced health check restore to be sure that their application is doing all the tests they wanted inside the VM and report to Xen Orchestra that it worked. So sometimes it could take more than 10 minutes. That's why now you can configure it and, use 10, 20, 30 minutes, whatever time you need for this timeout regarding the check. As soon as you reach the timeout, it's considered as failed, because if we don't have news about what's going on inside the VM, then there's maybe a problem. So up to you. By default, it's 10 minutes, but now you can change it. Let's move on to the REST API. And there's 2 cool new features into the REST API. The first one is now you could access to the audit log record. So the audit log is a plugin in Xen Orchestra that is providing a chain of records that can be tempered without being visible. So it's pretty useful for security. You could see exactly who did what and when, with the browser, the IP address, and so on. And now you could just get that without getting access to the UI, but through the REST API. So by the way, we also are giving an example that most of the time when we made an example on how to request the REST API, which is HTTP, we made an example with curl. But be aware that if you are using XOCLI, you can also use XOCLI to send a GET request, for example, with XO-CLI REST GET. That will do exactly the same thing than curl, but that's another possibility to do it. If you already have XOCLI, it's a bit even easier to do it. And the other exciting thing about it is the watch mode. So the watch mode is a new feature of the REST API that allows you to keep an eye on something that's going on. So, usually you make a request to the REST API, you get the results, and that's it. And if something is going on after that, then you need to remake another request to see it, which is not really practical for monitoring a task, for example. So that's why we added the watch parameter inside the URL, where you will keep it open and see when something is moving, happening, and so on. So the watch mode will be very helpful for many things, but for task, that's the I would say no-brainer to get what's going on and what's happening in real time. So that's a really cool one. Let's move to the VMware to Vates. So I discussed that a bit in intro regarding the fact that we still have many people, and that's really helpful to have the feedback, from those people all the time for many reasons, because they could explain to us, what's going on if there's a problem, and there's, not a similar VMware infrastructure in the world. There's many different, metadata kind of things that we couldn't guess before it's happening, and now we improved our ability to interpret those metadata parsing to be sure that everything is working. So that's a lot of work, but it's very visible since we have more and more let's say imports that are working just at the first try, which is really great. We support also multi-data center, meaning that you can connect your Xen Orchestra to a vCenter and get access to all the VMs you want without having direct access to the storage. And we are also improve the HTTP proxy support that is obviously ignored when you want to reach, a VMware inside your infrastructure. You won't go through your proxy. And the other big thing that we have this month is the vSAN data store migration. So in short, it's really not easy to migrate from a vSAN, because we had to learn how to migrate from a VMFS repository. So we had to get access through the API to the file, then to access the VMDK, to stream it, and so on. But for vSAN, it's even different. It's another format, and so you cannot just access the VMDK file directly. So we had to be creative, but we found a solution, and now you can even import a vSAN-based storage disk. So that works. So if your VM is running on vSAN, now it works. It's a bit slower than the usual process, but it works, and we'll continue to improve that system to be sure that we are compatible with everything. Let's move on to some features that we have in Xen Orchestra, but that are related, in fact, only to XCP-ng 8.3. By the way, we should have the official release for 8.3 in a matter of, let's say, this summer, something like this. And so we prepared an exciting feature, which is to expose PCI pass-through directly through an API, so the XCP-ng API, meaning it could be exposed in Xen Orchestra. So it's a lot of work. It's really interesting if you want to take a look on the pull request and how we worked with the Zappy team to get, the design and the API calls into it. But it's done, it's merged, so that's very cool. A big thanks to the Zappy team upstream for the work of helping us to get that upstream. And we even made the package. So now we wait to get that modification in the next update train for XCP-ng 8.3, and it will be able to use it directly from XO. So what we did is we already merged the code into Xen Orchestra. So it's, I would say, already ready in Xen Orchestra itself, but not yet in XCP. However, you can have a glimpse on what's going on with the screenshots. So you can enable a device, meaning making it the device available to be assigned to a VM. So it's basically ignoring the device for the DOM0. And then if you go to the VM view in the attach PCI device to VM, you could attach a free PCI device to your VM. So it's pretty convenient, and it means you don't have to use the CLI at all to make PCI pass through. And for 8.2, it will at least give you the information on which PCI device is attached to which VM, which is already a small bonus, even if you won't be able to attach directly through the UI in 8.2, because it will be a new feature of 8.3. And moving on to XO6 and XO Lite. So I will go pretty fast on there, but to give you some news, we made really good progress on getting more and more components integrated. So there's some screenshots of the components that are really ready to be inside the UI. So we go, as you remember, from Figma, which is a mockup, if you like. Then we make the components in Vue.js, and then finally we integrate it in the inside its context, meaning inside the web page. So that leads to the fact that we made the XO6 general layout, which is working with already many things into it in terms of, resizing the headers and the shortcuts and so on and so on. Also a great way to request the objects that is really smart and will lead to only downloading what we need. So it's pretty cool. And we also made the first basic tree view inside XO6, and we hope to get that released in the next XO version, so the next month, as a default endpoint slash v6, where you could already have access to the first steps of the UI directly and see months after months our progress in very practical terms. For Exolite, it's a new release with the, I would say, final tree view that is exactly on how we want it to be in the component. So that's a small new release, but still there is more components that are ported to it, and now those components are fully could be used between XO6 and Exolite. So expect that going even faster in the next months. And finally, let's go for the Misc section, which is mostly enhancement into the existing UI. So we got the rolling pull update and rolling pull reboots feature that are now creating a Xen Orchestra task. So it means you have a kind of a global task that is giving you what's going on an operation, which is composed of many small zappy tasks. So that's why we absolutely needed those exo tasks, and they're moving forward. And now this long and async process of doing an RPU, for example, is giving you a status on, it's work in progress with an orange dot. It's green when it's done and red if there is an error. So you can now understand exactly what's going on. And in the next release, we'll have the percentage progress that is made for the overall process. So that will be even better to use the RPU than before. Then the last two items. There's one item for using secure boot for your VM because of the fact that sometimes if you do not enable secure boot on the pool level, but you want to execute it on the VM level, we provide an alert message telling you that it's not enabled on the pool, and you might have the false impression that secure boot will work, but in fact it will silently fail. So that's why we prefer to be sure that you understand that even if you enable secure boot for the VM, as long as it's not enabled at the pool level, then it won't be enabled. So that's why this is an important feedback from the UI. And finally, an external contribution that we find it really nice is a Japanese translation for Xen Orchestra. If you want to provide a translation to Xen Orchestra, there is already many different language that are supported, but you can always add the one you like. So there is, I think, something like maybe 10 or 12 language already. English, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, and so on. And Hebrew too. So if you want to add one, it's really, really easy to contribute. It's just a text file where you could add the string in your, in your language with the original string on, the left. And, it takes, I would say, few hours, maybe a bit more if you want to do all the details, but it's not that complex and provides more diversity in the capability of having users that are not using English. So we're pretty like this. And thank you very much, Taki Yasushi, for your assistance on providing this translation. And that's it for this new release of Xen Orchestra for April 2024. Thank you very much for following this live, and see you around for next release in the month of May. Have a great day, and bye-bye.